um, please feel free to have a seat. There are worksheets that are at each station. Well, not each station, but if you don't have one, there are more copies in the back or some up front. There's also pins in the back if you need a pin. Um, but we're going to get started really quickly because that went fast. So, just a quick introduction. My name is Liz Ortiz, and I'm a local printmaker and workshop facilitator. I own Hare Press, which is a local printmaking business where I sell my prints using accessible forms of printmaking. But I also host workshops. So my workshops consist of accessible forms of printmaking and other forms of art, including ones that honor my Mexican heritage. Um, but as we move through today's workshop, we are going to be talking about storytelling and artist statements, and what that all entails. And hopefully, at the end, you will have the tools needed to tell your story. So, um, just a quick thing, I have my BFA in fine art. So I have been telling my story over and over for a really long time. And sometimes when I fill out an application or I fill out information for a gallery showing, I still have these moments where I'm like, who am I? And the reason why that happens is because you are evolving constantly. If you're creating, you are adapting to new methods, new techniques, new mediums, new materials. And as you grow through your practice or you adapt new practices, it changes. And so having a framework to have under your belt where all the essential stuff is already there and you just adapt it to where you are in your process. So, first, storytelling. So, in an art context, and art can be music, it can be uh, poetry, it could be cooking. There's an art to a lot of things that we don't think about. And in an art context, it's how you're communicating the meaning and motivation and lived experience behind your art, behind your creations. And then the connect it all of that allows for connection beyond what a viewer sees or what they understand. And an artist statement is one type of storytelling that is used to explain what you're making, why you make it, and what you want your art to convey to its viewers. And it's your voice. That's who you are in this process. Um, there are three ways of storytelling, and one is an artist statement, an artist bio, and a project description or a description of your body of work or series of work. So, with an artist statement, and you can go along on the worksheet and feel free to answer those questions as we go. Everything in the worksheet should be easy. So you don't have to think too hard. Write down what you're feeling in the moment. What comes up for you when you read the question, just write it down. What you're currently working on, or maybe something if you're not currently working on anything, what you want to work on. So kind of utilize that um, current state, but or also future state. Um, so for an artist statement, it is what you make, why you make it, and what that conveys. So it's it is what it is. So as you go through the artist statement, kind of thinking about those items, and then your bio is you. It's who you are. These are definitive uh, pieces of information. Your name, where are you located out of? Where do you work out of? If you are an artist out of Fort Collins and you stay in Fort Collins, then you say Fort Collins. Or If you're exploring northern Colorado, like, or all of Colorado, that is who you are as an artist. And usually for artist bios, when you submit them, it's in third person, um, so that galleries or other grant writing or submission work can kind of put you out there, like who you are. And then a project description, your series or your body of work, it's a little bit different because you're talking about a specific sliver of your creations. And sometimes body of works and like projects can be specific about one subject, about one concept, and its content might be different from another series. And then the intent behind it is different. So remembering that as you go through this worksheet. And then our first activity is your course story. So if you haven't started, I would just jot down the information that comes to mind. So define your practice. Um, what medium do you use? What materials and what techniques? So for me, I use printmaking. I use recycled Tetra Pak cartons, and that's my material. I use a, needle dry point techniques. It's an accessible form. So the technique is, uh, it's a new aged form. Um, so writing that down, and whether you're like maybe a musician, maybe you used to play saxophone and now you're into electronic work, more digital forms. So being able to kind of convey what you are focusing on in the moment. And this evolves. So I mean, you might be a painter and a musician. So you're going to have different forms of that artist statement that is relevant to what you're presenting to your audience. And then what returns in your work? So themes, emotions. Like I, as a photographer, that was my main interest when I was getting my BFA was photography. I focused on portraits, the emotions. I focused on raw emotions, on, you know, more candid moments where it wasn't, you know, it wasn't people out and play, but it was more just like stoic, who they were. And then what your art represents. So, what you want your audience to feel, what you feel when you're creating. Like, what are the emotions that arise when you are creating art, when you are creating, when you're baking bread, when you're writing a story? What are you feeling? And then, out of all of that feeling, what do you want others to understand from that feeling? And it might not even be the feeling itself, it might be the end result that came from it, whether that be, growth, whether that be peace, calm, frustration, you know, empowerment. Maybe you were feeling sad when you started it, but then you felt really empowered at the end, and that's what you want to convey. That's what you want to move through your art. And then what is revealed about oneself, one's community, and one's practice. And you don't have to do all three. It can be separate. It could just be one, but it's very similar to what your art represents, but also sometimes it's more or less like what maybe you came to understand about yourself through the process. Um, and then we'll move quickly as we go through the framework foundation. So in any artist statement, artist bio, your project description, you want a strong foundation. So the foundation helps you understand yourself as you evolve. And so it will feel repetitive, and that's okay because sometimes the process changes. And so repetition helps you get to a point of where it's like, yeah, no, I am a printmaker. Like I enjoy doing that on a constant basis. Or, I am a jazz musician and that's who I am. And maybe you were dabbling in multiple forms of music, but jazz is what you always came back to. So as you repeat yourself, you start to understand who you are, and that makes your artist statement your true voice. And so as you go through the questions and answer those, what you make, your medium, your materials, your subject matter, why are you making it, the themes behind it, your the questions you ask yourself or the questions you want others to ask, your values, what you value in your own work, in your own life, in your own existence. That's what makes, like, that's why you're making art. That's why you're creating. That's why you're baking bread. That's why you're singing songs. And then connection. So you're creating things in hopes of putting them out there. And even if you don't put it out there, sometimes you develop a connection with yourself as you're going through it, whether that's understanding yourself, whether that's growth. And sometimes if you feel inclined to, it allows you to make connection with your audience, with others to understand who you are and why you're creating. And then if we have time, you can create a 3 to 5 sentence artist statement. And so just take a quick few minutes to go back through those questions in your framework and your core story and draft something quickly. It doesn't have to be thorough, it doesn't have to be grammatically correct, it doesn't have to have the exact vocabulary, but more or less like feeling of what you want to convey. So utilize that information, just concise, clear language, specificity if it's just like direct. I am a printmaker based out of Fort Collins, and I focus on nature, and my work represents cultural heritage. My work represents myself when I feel calm in a natural setting. And you know, I, I want others to feel calm as well when they see my pieces, when they see my work. I want others to feel empowered to create when they see my work. So kind of think about that as you go. And this can be in first or third person, whichever feels more natural. Um, First person, usually you'd want to use when you're trying to make an impact. So if you are applying to a program, to a residency, or you're applying to for a grant, you want to be personable, who you are. I am, I'm a printmaker. If you're submitting to a gallery and they're going to be showing this, Liz Ortiz is a printmaker, kind of allows the audience to, see you as Liz Ortiz, or yourself. So being able to kind of transition between those two helps change the impact that you're looking for. And feel free to continue filling it out. Um, the purpose is to kind of be quick through it so that you don't overthink it, because it's really easy to overthink it and spend like 2 hours on an artist statement that could take you sometimes like 5 minutes when you look at it. So as you're going through all of this, all of the worksheet, specificity, specify what mediums you're using. And even if you're bullet pointing it, you're like, okay, I'm just going to jot it down, have it in bullet points, and then later I will compose those sentences that make sense or that make sense for me. So it's more or less like being able to get that story all together and then make the complete sentence. And then your purpose. So review and edit. Make sure your purpose is in there, your connection, your own voice. So who you are and how you want others to see you. And then make it succinct, be concise. Sometimes it's all about just weeding out those excess words or information that you might not need in there. And so it's an editing process because as you evolve, maybe your practice changes and that artist statement you used on the last submission or the last residency is no longer true because maybe the residency like changed you and now you're evolved. So you go back in, you take things out, you put new things in, things that feel truer to you in your current moment. And then this one is going to be really quick and it's super easy. So, an artist bio sometimes feels really heavy, but a lot of it is going to be consistent information. So, your name, where are you located? If you're in Fort Collins and you specifically show around Fort Collins, then you list Fort Collins because it matters when you're submitting locally. If you want to expand, say Northern Colorado, or you say, you know, I'm an artist out of Colorado. So you're looking to expand and broaden your audience, your background. So whether you were formally trained, you have an education or a degree, that matters. But also, if you don't, maybe you've been playing, piano for 15 years and you're self-taught. That's important because that shows dedication. That shows that you are passionate about what you do. Maybe you've been writing a book for the last 10 years and it's not published, but it still matters that you've been writing for 10 years because you've been evolving it. Um, it can also be skills. What experience do you have? Maybe you do have some experience you don't really think about. Maybe you taught art at a, you know, boys and girls club, or you were facilitating things with others. Like that is important. And then remembering your medium and your themes and then highlights. So if you are in a state where you've already done exhibitions, you've gotten awards, you've started projects, you've worked with the community, put that down. Choose one to two that really mean something to you in your current process and write it down. It matters because when you're submitting to a residency or you're submitting to, show in a gallery, it shows that you are empowered by creating and um, you want to be a part of the community. So it just shows that motivation. And if you don't have that, that's okay. Like, we're all starting, and maybe you don't want it, and that's totally fine too. Maybe it's more about focusing yourself on the work itself. And you don't have to put it in there, you don't have to put a highlight. You can put an achievement. Maybe you are a self taught, you know, musician, that's your achievement. That's still a highlight. So, teaching yourself a new instrument is a feat that not everybody does every day. So, remembering that, or you taught yourself a new form of writing, like that's also a highlight. So, one of the last things is project and body of work. So, this isn't as pertinent unless you are submitting a specific piece, whether it be you've done a composition of songs that you're submitting to, a residency or a grant, or you have short stories that you want to submit. Um, what is your series about? What mediums are you using, materials, the process, whether it's all analog, whether it's digital, whether, it's a combination of both, and then what you explored. So maybe you were exploring new concepts and techniques, and towards the end, you kind of went back to your traditional skill sets. And then why it matters to you, and then why it matters to others. And as you notice, there's a lot of repetition in the same things, and that is going to kind of help you kind of condense what you're writing and submitting. Um, so if you're working on something currently, or if you're dreaming of something, so if there's a project that you want to do, but you have yet to do it, this would be good to write and answer those questions. Maybe it's something that you needed a little bit more motivation to complete it. So answer those questions to that future project that you'll eventually do, and maybe this will be your starting point. And then the last thing is going to be a master statement. This is the easiest thing because you're just repeating everything back. And you can take out all of the like fluff that you might put that is specific to yourself in your current process, but it's more or less like your name. Maybe you have a business, maybe you have like maybe it's your online presence, your location, your education, training, your experience, the medium, materials, techniques, subject matter, themes, and then the connections and emotions you're feeling. And then exhibitions, projects, and recognition. Maybe you did a residency recently and it was really important for you to do that residency. So, kind of going through that, like mentioning it. Um, a lot of it could just be like like a single paragraph. I'm Liz Ortiz, founder of Mad Hair Press, located out of Fort Collins, Colorado, with a BFA in fine art, uh, practicing making prints using traditional printmaking techniques as well as new forms, accessible forms of printmaking. I focus on bold line work, and I want people to feel empowered by natural forms. And I have recently had an exhibition at the Masonic Event Center, things like that. So it doesn't have to be, there doesn't have to be a lot of information in between. And then you use that master statement and then you add things to it. And so as you're evolving, you just add maybe additional details. Maybe your work is focused on landscapes and you feel really passionate about change. And change and growth is where you're focused on. And you want people to feel empowered to grow and to change and to evolve. So that can also go into your master statement. Thank you so much. um, there's my information. I also have my cards. If you want to network afterwards, please feel free to email me. But remember, your story should always be evolving just like you do. So you're changing every day, and so should your story because your creations are constantly changing. Thank you. Yeah, of course. Oh, wow. Yes.
I have winter here.
Oh, no.
Anyway, I'll email you because we practice and I don't know. I think
Yeah,
it's good. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
It's
Thank
like
you.
the best, like short, succinct way to do an
Oh,
art statement.
thank you.
Sing it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I know, I feel like I've written so many, and then I go back and I'm like, I gotta write a new one.
Oh, yeah. Great for every little thing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
Yeah,
just
thank
follow
you
you
so
on
much.
Instagram.
Yay.
It's so funny because like there was a match years ago in
Oh,
Greenfield. It was years ago, but they had it at the artery.
oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, I do remember touring in the artery, but
Yeah.
I.
So anyway, that was like, no, it's not the same. It's different.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, like, carving into the wood, you have to constantly sharpen your tools and you have to stop a lot. And when I think stop though, I usually just like injure myself. I'm going to I just gotta do it all at once. Hello, everyone. Yes, did you have a question?
Um,
Uh-huh.
Outside of it being
A workshop?
statement,
Hmm.
I was told as far as website and everything, please not use her, not me.
Oh, yes. So I'm going to go through everything as we go through the workshop. But yeah, we'll touch on that as well. So we'll touch on third person and first person preferences. So yeah, so I'll quickly start. Um, you'll see that you have a worksheet in front of you, as well as artist statement examples and artist bios, as well as project description examples. Um, so to begin, I'm going to do a quick introduction. I'm Liz Ortiz, and I am a local printmaker and workshop facilitator. I am I own Mad Hair Press. It's a local art business here out of Fort Collins, Colorado. And I focus mainly on accessible forms of printmaking. I sell my prints at local markets. I also teach workshops that focus on accessible forms of printmaking, but also other accessible forms of art, including art forms that honor my Mexican heritage. Um, I have a BFA in photo image making, which is analog photography and printmaking from here, CSU. I also have been writing artist statements and storytelling for almost 22 years. So I have a little bit of experience behind that. It hasn't always been public, but um, as we walk through today's workshop, we will be talking about storytelling and artist statements. Um, and the hopes is at the end of this workshop, you have the tools you need to create your own artist statements, your own artist bio, and your own project descriptions. So, storytelling. Um, Art comes in many forms. It's not just visual art, it can be music, it can be writing, it could be baking. There's so many art forms out there. So, you're a creator, whether you know it, in so many different ways. And in an art context, is how you, as an artist or creator, communicates the meaning, motivation, and lived experience behind your art and behind your creations. Um, and the work allows connection beyond what a viewer sees. So, an artist statement is going to giving that viewer a deeper look into what was behind the painting or what was behind the song or the poem that you wrote. And an artist statement is one type of the storytelling to explain what you're making, why are you making it, and what you want your creations to convey, what you want that song to convey to its audience. And then you're using your own voice. It's who you are. And that matters because it's not just a generic thing. It all comes back to who you are. And so you'll see on our worksheet, there's just a quick description. So, an artist statement, it's what you make, why you make it, and what it conveys. It's really simple. Sometimes it feels daunting. So, it can feel overwhelming. It's like, what do I put in there? And the purpose of this workshop and the worksheet is to give you the building blocks so that you don't have to think too hard and you can just keep adding to it. So it can evolve as you write it. And then your bio, that's you. It's all definitive stuff. So your name, where you come from, what your experience is. And that's usually in the third person um, because it's who you are. So you put a name to it. Um, I'm Liz, and I'm a printmaker. Or Liz Ortiz is a printmaker and been practicing printmaking for over 20 years. So that's your bio. And then a project description. So if you're actively creating and you're making series or bodies of work or you focus on a specific subject, you're making a project, you're making a body of work, and what is it? Like, what's the concept behind it? What is the context? What is your intent in making that body of pieces? Um, and then find your core story. So this will be your first activity, and this workshop moves really fast, so feel free to write through everything as we go. If you get ahead, that's totally fine. If you need to rewrite something and erase it, that's cool. Um, but it should be easy. You don't have to think too hard. A lot of it is just write what comes to mind. Just be specific, even if it's bullet points, single words that you put down. It doesn't have to be complete sentences. You don't have to be extremely thorough, um, but just to get you started. So you're thinking about it. So define your practice. What medium are you currently using? And if you're not currently practicing, what medium do you want to explore? So it can be a future self. What materials do you want to explore? What materials are you currently using? What techniques, whether you're using traditional techniques, maybe you're a musician who's practicing traditional guitar or you're practicing you're a saxophonist, or you were a saxophonist and now you're exploring digital work, you're exploring electronic music. So remembering that you can evolve, you can change. And so writing down just the basic information helps you understand where you're at right now or where you want to be. And then what returns in your work, what themes, what emotions, what keeps coming back. And you'll find it feels repetitive. And the reason why it feels repetitive is because as we write things out, we start to learn more about ourselves than we really were thinking about. So as you rewrite it, maybe it changes, maybe it evolves, maybe something else comes out of it. And then what your art represents. What does that song represent to you? What do you feel about it? Or what do you want others to understand of it? And then what is revealed about oneself? And those are connected. So what is revealed about oneself, your community, and your practice? Like what comes out of it? And sometimes it's different. Sometimes in the beginning of a painting, you're feeling sad, but what comes out of it is growth. What comes out of it is strength and empowerment to do something. So what revealed about that painting is I'm powerful. I'm a painter. That's what I revealed. So kind of as you go through the process, think about those things. Write them down. Maybe it's just like a one word that comes to mind. And then we'll move on to the next section, creating a framework foundation. So this is going to be repetitive too. And it's about, you know, creating impact from a strong foundation, from you want to know what you're doing. Like you want to know what you're making, why you're making it, and what connection do you have to yourself and what connection do you have to others through it. And maybe the connection evolved when you were creating, you know, you when you were writing a poem, like maybe the connection was you know, I found myself to be a strong person. I found myself to be courageous. And that's your connection. So, kind of going through that and same thing, writing really quickly, one word or one sentence. And then your artist statement, drafting your sentence, drafting 3 to 5 sentences, taking a few minutes. Utilize the core story in that framework foundation, and then you aim for clear language and specificity. You want it to be concise, but you also want it to touch on the important things that matter to you. So if the medium is extremely like important, or the feeling, the theme, the subject matter, if that's important, focus on that. Create strength through your story, through your voice. And in this one, it can be first or third person. So the impact is a little bit different when you use first person versus third person. So if you're submitting for a residency and you want them to know who you are, you know, using first person is really impactful because it allows a person to feel, you know, I am passionate about printmaking. I'm passionate about, you know, landscapes. The reason why I'm passionate about landscapes is because it makes me feel calm. It makes me feel, at peace. And I want to share that with others. So sometimes that first person is really important, and you kind of have to weigh whether to use it in submissions because it puts personal connection to your voice. Third person, say you're putting pieces up in a gallery and you have an artist statement on the wall, you want people to remember your name. So, like, Liz Ortiz is a printmaker who's been printmaking for over 20 years and is focusing on accessible forms and sharing her work with others. Like, that's how you get your audience to like remember you. And then it kind of like puts a name to the piece because you're not going to always be there. But if you're doing an interview with somebody and they're like, oh, I see that you were really passionate about this, then like sometimes that first person is important. And then as you go and you write this down, review and edit. So specificity, like make sure that you're specifying those pieces that you want to convey, your purpose, your connection, and your own voice. Because it's not just, you fill out the individual pieces, it's like you're creating a voice, and that matters. Like that matters to, getting into a residency, it matters to getting funding, it matters to just, putting yourself out there for the first time. Like that all matters. And then being concise. So you can weed things out, take out words that don't really make an impact to the information that's down there. And then artist bio builder. So this section is really easy, very straightforward. And this will help. So when you combine things, you already have it down. This is who you are. So your name, where are you located out of? If you're solely in Fort Collins right now, but you want to be in Northern Colorado, put Northern Colorado on there. Put your umbrella out there. Say, if you want to travel all of Colorado and do things, put Colorado, the state of Colorado. Um, Add your background, your experience, and it doesn't have to be professional experience. It can be self-taught experience. It can be self-dedication to your art, to your creation. So if you have no formal training in playing guitar, but you taught yourself guitar, that's important because that shows dedication. It shows, perseverance. So put that down. I've been practicing self-taught guitar, classical guitar for 10 years. It doesn't matter how long it's been. It shows that you are motivated to continue it. And then your medium, your themes, and themes change. So like your mediums might change. I mean, you might be a painter one day and then the next day you're a poet. So remembering to pull those out, put them in when they matter. Um, if you're a poet and a painter and you're applying to different things, just switch them out so that that impact happens on a different scale. If you're combining them, put them together. And then highlights. So not everybody is going to have these type of highlights, whether they be exhibitions, awards, projects that you worked on, community work. Um, but not everybody wants that. So if you do have it, put one or two of those in there. Something that was really meaningful to you that you have such a connection to that you can talk about it and you want to talk about it, put it in there. If and sometimes there are things you don't even think about. Maybe you taught a boys and girls camp, art class, and it was like so meaningful to you. Put it in there. That's success. That's being in community. So remember those like small achievements. They're powerful. So don't sell yourself short when it comes to things like that. So you can use this and draft your bio, and then the next one is a project or body of work description. So this is going to help in two ways. So if you're currently working on a body of work or you have one in the past and you want to put it back out there or you want to put it out there, what is your series about? What are the mediums being used, the process? What have you explored, whether that be concept, techniques, and why it matters to you and why it matters to others, or what you want to matter to others. But this also can be really useful for if you have a project in mind or you have a body of work that you've dreamt about, write it down here. Like, write what would the series be about? What would be the mediums and materials that you use? What process do you want to explore? Like, write it down because that might help you later on to actually follow through with it. It will be your starting point to be like, you know what? I really do want to do that. And if you write it down, you can already have the foundations for that description. And maybe it'll evolve. Maybe it'll change from what you initially thought of. And that is completely fine. That's the process of evolving as a creator because you're constantly changing. And And then the last thing is a master statement. So this is going to be beneficial for everything because you're going to have everything in one space. And then you just change in and out different contexts, different subjects, different themes. And so your name, if you own a business, what's the name of your business? If you are an online influencer, you have an art name, put that in there. So, because you want people to find you. Your location, if you are just out of Fort Collins, but you do want to do Northern Colorado, put Northern Colorado in there. Shoot big because that's going to give you the courage and motivation to share your story and to continue telling it. Yeah, your education, medium, subject, the connection, emotions you're feeling, the values you have behind your work, like the personal values that do come through your work, and sometimes you have to like explore that. And then your exhibitions, projects, and recognition. Maybe you won an award through the city, or you were active in getting, new pianos to one of the local schools because you felt like music was really important. That's a success. So, putting that in there and then remembering as you walk through each day, as you create new things, it is going to change. And so all of this foundational like work will be meaningful because you can go back in, you take things out, you add things in. Maybe you take things from your past that you add back in. Maybe you explore something new. So, kind of remembering it is always evolving. And yeah, your story should always evolve just as you do. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. If you have any questions, there are examples. Um, Feel free to take everything, fill it out here. I believe you have like 10 minutes left. I went through that one really fast. So yeah, feel free to walk through the worksheet and just like quickly go through it. If you have questions, let me know. I have cards too, so if you want to connect outside of the workshop, if you have any questions about that, I can't promise I will respond immediately, but I will do my best.
Are they regrouping us at the end?
No, actually, you'll be leaving after this. Yeah. So,
You're going to G Clay?
G Clay? Oh no.
You show me how to do that. You write circuits with each of those so that they can run or do this
It depends. So if you like so say you're submitting to a market and you're going to sell art and you want to talk about artwork that you're creating. But say you also do workshops, the workshops don't really like apply because you're not going to be facilitating a workshop at the market. So talking about that more of the art focus than what the creative.
so and so you create that. So this is really the simple to do an action to sell your art or you're going to do something like that and on the website to follow up.
Yeah, yeah. And you can have multiple things. So like if you were doing this for your website, your artist statement could be all encompassing. So you're talking about the multifacets of your creation. So maybe your website, your painter and a photographer. So then you incorporate both because your website's going to be focusing on both forms of art. Or you're also a poet in both.
That's what I do, visual memory. Art.
Oh, yes. Then yeah, you would always. I think you would always like incorporate both because if your
creative process is the integration of both forms, then you should always have it together. Unless you are like doing a project description and you're only doing one form. Yep. Then I would change that. But if as an artist, like what you're defining as yourself in the moment is um, what I'm currently doing. Okay. And like, eventually in the future, if it evolves and it changes, then what future self is going to be doing. Um, but yeah, the integration is it's beneficial too because there are times where I do things like this where I'm facilitating a workshop, but I'm not selling my artwork. But it's important to know my background in creating art and what I do. But I am currently, I do sell my artwork, and so the formal training and creativity is important because that's why I create stuff in form. So that kind of helps it be together.
On the master's statement, if you're applying for something, they don't have like a specific, I'm going to say like a size limit, but how long or short it should be. What would be like a recommended long enough to tell your story, but not so long that they're just like, I can't handle this, and they move on past it.
Yeah. So I would say probably about like I would honestly like don't go any longer than that. Maybe like maybe 250 pretty good. 250 pretty good. And like experiment. So like when you like if you have so if you have your artist statement and your artist bio. So say you do the artist bio first. You're introducing yourself. You can combine all of this. So like you introduce yourself, and then you have the description of what your work represents, what's the meaning behind it, and then you have maybe it's the submission is like a body of work. Like maybe you're submitting pieces to a gallery show. Like then that project description will go underneath because you want them to know what it is. So you want them to know who you are. You want them to know what you represent as an artist, or like what your voice is, and then you want them to know the project, like what you're creating, what you're submitting, and how those connect. It will flow through. Like they are interconnected. So there's information from each piece that you can read out. So maybe you were just that you're doing accessible. Maybe you said you were doing short stories, and you don't need to repeat that in the artist statement because you already mentioned that in the bio. Um, how your short stories evolve as a process. What is that creation? What's what are the short so kind of remembering that. And these ones are really short, which is really good because it's creating a succinct story of who you are. But also, you can make it longer. I think the times you can make it longer that feel so impactful is when you have like an artist statement that's on the wall that people see. Because the people who want to know will keep reading. If you're doing submissions for like grants or funding, whether you're doing for endowment stuff, maybe people that want to see things closer to the shorter version, and then adding more stuff like that. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you everybody for coming. You guys are done. We're good to go. If you got photos, we'll be sending that link to you in a few weeks. Go in, find yours, and download it. So you'll see everybody. You'll see everybody. I didn't know. But yeah. Hey, Liz. You're so cool. Do you need anything from me?
So, can you go back there and you want? Or
We can just be recycled.
okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So,
small team. They don't. I struggle a lot. I do more like t-shirts and stuff. So I'm not a art so much as like color on. My older kids will but getting into like probably monetize actually eventually. But the mix of the two, which I've gotten, both sides that are like, oh, that's not really a monotone because it's carved something out of it. And then others that are like, yeah, so you can put it in the variable edition or whatever. Okay, there's all these rules about printmaking. Oh my goodness. And I feel hesitant and not confident to call myself a curator. One, I talked about last time. I have a lot of beauty and illustration and my whole life for the last 20 years has been out printing. Okay, so coming back around to that, I don't feel comfortable saying like I enjoy the book. And people are like, oh, really? What? There's like this stigma against like, oh, you're not a real printmaker because you use rubber block and press space. That's fair. Like I don't have the press. I don't. Oh, my work is good, and people like my work. But I feel like how can I ever apply if it's whatever it's like? Like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Accessible forms like things that like accessibility can be like a financial accessibility. It could be just materials in general. Like I mean, traditional forms of purchasing and photography,
Yeah.
not accessible
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you have to have a
And
studio.
jeans? No.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not accessible because it's not accessible to all. And so accessibility means what you're doing is accessible to
Yeah.
all. And maybe when you're doing it, when you're writing your statement in order to gain confidence, you're putting work out there that can empower someone else who
Yeah.
wants to create.
And isn't it right to use modern materials? If there is now there is value in linoleum and there's value in wood. They produce different effects.
Yeah.
I happen to not like linoleum, and I don't have the money for good tools for work.
Yeah.
So I do rubber block. I don't know I can do it forever because it's expensive, and it's like eventually that material may not be available anymore. So I need to branch into the others. But wouldn't you say like using modern materials?
Yeah. Yeah.
Alternative block materials, some other
Using
phrasing.
Yeah, and then like if you like so for me I use when I was getting my MBA I was I was mastered in polio. And so polio is not accessible at all. You can't really do it outside of school
Yeah.
unless you're very wealthy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
Or you're like, money bucks grandpa,
Yeah,
like
right.
buying a whole like studio press.
I have my personal jealousies of a few people I follow who are like, "Oh, you're so young.
Yeah.
How do you have all this
I
equipment?"
know.
Right? Okay.
And then they don't even know how
Yeah.
to use it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But like, when I started exploring accessible forms of printmaking, because outside
Like
of
Tetra Pak and things like that, where it's like, yeah.
and Tetra Pak, I mean, the results are so beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like I'm using accessible forms of printmaking, including Tetra Pak and polio, which like when I do my workshops, the whole point of my workshops is to create or empower people to explore art in many forms.
Yeah.
Not limit themselves to a traditional, art form like oil painting.
Yeah.
Not everybody can
Yeah.
afford oil.
Yeah.
So,
Acrylic, right.
acrylic is just as beautiful.
Yeah.
And sometimes, depending on the artist, more beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, if you limit yourself or it's some about other people to define
Yeah.
who you are, but you some artists
Using rubber blocks for making amazing things. For making successful businesses.
Yeah. I use rubber
With their stuff. Right. So it's like, why?
And the reason too I use rubber blocks and why I call it an accessible. That's an accessible form is because people who have,
Yeah.
maybe they're
like physically hard.
disabilities, like have arthritis, and Yeah. Allow people to continue
Yeah.
that practice. Wood? No.
Yeah.
No. You're
Yeah.
not gonna carve wood if you have like carpal tunnel or if you have, degenerative disorder, like, or if you mobile, and that's fine. Like,
What about like labeling? Do you feel like there are specific ways you have to label it to be considered fine arts, professional? Like I said, like this whole thing of like I did a print that was like, some of it I did as traditional, but for some of it I variably rolled the ink on, so each one was slightly different. Okay, so then one would be like, that's not a monotone. Okay, true, it's not, but I didn't know how to label it, so then they were like, oh, you have to label it this way, like that, some editions, some variable edition, some this and that. How much does that matter if you want to try to like reach out to, I don't know if it's legalities, but like if you want to reach out for competition, like how much does that perfect labeling, materials, traditional structure play into what it is?
I think it's just like consistency. So focus on like
All my work is labeled the same way.
or like
They talk
very
about
similar and use the same terms every
Yeah.
time. So like in for me, by me, I say practice bonding. I would say when I talk about flexible forms like tetrapsycholia, so I mention it. And if there's a question, it's like, we're in a modern age,
Yeah.
and everybody has access to new foundations, and that is limited.
Yeah.
I choose to have not admit my work to anybody.
Yeah.
And I
Which
want
I haven't run into it.
everybody.
Yeah, I haven't run into it because I haven't applied to something, but I haven't personally had a hang up of like, whenever people ask, oh, what do you use? What am I going? I use rubber block. I have this feeling like, I know,
I
not
say I
good.
create from a
Well, yeah,
that's what I think.
I say modern materials is what
I
I
would
would say.
say-
Like a modern material like this, and I'm showing them with them out of,
Or I say soft with only.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
then like, or I'll say rubber to plastic.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's essentially, I mean,
because people think rubber block equals stamping, and then there's
Yeah.
this weird other version of like,
I'm like, what I do where
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's a stamp, but I'm like, not quite.
Yeah.
So stamping is a little bit different, and I can
like, let
explain
me
that
tell you,
process.
and then they go, oh,
Yeah.
I know. There's
But
a,
yeah, like,
well, thank you, because that's a question for me that has been,
you know what? And I think, wow, I think some of the most beautiful work on the multi-process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like, I know you need.
and I feel I'm on the verge of that, where like, I'm kind of a square person where I'm kind of like, and I learned like this, I'm gonna do it like this. That, but like I don't. I feel like I'm crossing that line of like, okay, I'm ready to try new different things, but I'm not ready to dive into multimedia, or I'm not ready to dive into, sometimes social media makes it harder because you see somebody doing something that you have thought before of doing, and they're really good at it. And you're like, I don't know if I should try it because, we're all like, oh, they came up like a guy who does oil painting monotype, and he uses literal oil paints instead of printing inks to make his work on glass. And I'm like, but then I think, oh, you can't, because this guy who's, oh, my audience is the same as his. Like, nobody who follows him is going to try it.
I mean,
He just told him the right to
he
use
didn't
it.
invent
Right.
it. But also too, like you think, like I saw this printmaker, and she does that same thing. She makes monochrome ice cream. So she dabs the ink and creates a whole image on the screen, and then she fills it, and the image is amazing. But I was gonna say, you are making monochrome. Monoprint is singular print. You only get one paper.
One that's exactly that. But she was like, one of the ladies who runs this Facebook was like, sounds like because you could repeat parts of the pattern. Like,
Well, you can repeat parts of the pattern all the time.
right.
I mean, if you have like a physics, if you did a drawing,
Yeah.
and use that as your reference for your money,
Yeah.
you can technically recreate that.
And I'm almost like, does it matter as long as like, all I needed to know was how should I label it on my website myself, right? Like that's what I was trying to figure out, so that I could identify clarify that when someone buys this one, it is not the same as this one.
You should, so like if you do
Because I had one that was like traditional printing, where I carved each layer, and then I had the one that's like, I did reduction, but seriously ink.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would say
I
like,
don't.
so I have some pieces that I did that are photo Lizos, but I printed over them with
Yeah.
and they vary, and I would have like
You wouldn't say it was an addition.
it is.
I mean, it is.
I
You would
did
say
it
it.
because it was all the same photos. I had like 6 of them that I did. But it would be a photo Lizo with multi-plate with a melted.
Right. Yeah.
No, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like if you were to put on them, you could put block print on front.
Yeah. True. Yeah.
So I mean, I think at the end,
I'm like, does it matter?
yeah,
Like,
I would say
colors is gonna get me into like I can't apply to things because I don't.
be really careful on Facebook. There are a lot of big and it's just because they easily also mentality that like specifically that was like
Yeah. Yeah. I do. Yeah.
like not
Yeah.
so like I mean
Yeah.
in the modern part of it and they're not all in the traditional form.
Yeah.
Like you don't like that. You don't like the modern galleries around here.
Yeah.
People are using it to feel like and
Yeah.
you know the label.
I've had no experience with it coming from except through online. For our kids who've been traveling and stuff, but I just learned about home.
Yeah.
Didn't know about that at all.
Yeah.
Gonna do the thing at the Tampa garden, which is like $20.
Yeah.
So and I was like, I'll sit with somebody and show my work. But I'm gonna try to get to any workshops that I can. I don't know if they've announced classes yet, but try to just like there's a point where it's like you can be self-taught and you can glean from the videos and you can glean from practice. But there's a time where sometimes you're just like, how much oil would you use in your medium? You know, like you want to talk to somebody like, not just experiment every time. Sometimes you just want to be like, I'm sure. You know, the parts that you need to learn when somebody's not an expert. So I'm kind of hoping I'll come down to this.
I'm leaving. Okay.
I'm letting you leave too. Yeah.
Anything? Unless you need me to stick around for anything, but I'm driving down.
Thank you, Livin, for chatting, and I have the info, so maybe I'll see you at home, Brenda. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
If I remember well. We're going to cover. Oh, nice. Yeah. So I'm part of that. Got a cabinet. It's nice. Good to have friends like that.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.